The first clip ever with my new camera is Emilio's RX-7. Hello Emilio, how are you? Boom! All right, hello YouTube audience. This is the beginning of a video that everyone keeps pestering me to do. No, they're trolling me is what it is. It's not really they're asking, they're trolling. So I keep making these videos. We did an RB series, I think 2 videos on how to make a reliable, like crazy cool RB. We did one on JZ engines, kind of just like a frequently asked cool question video on that, and now we're gonna do rotaries because Lone Star Drift makes fun of rotaries all the time. They're basically a meme in themselves, and I went to a resident person, so I also want to do an SR20 video, but I don't know anybody that's super good and like super knowledgeable about SR20s to like the highest level where they're reliably able to do anything they want. Flip this up. Yeah, you gotta leave them stock, whatever. But now we are going to do one with Emilio talking about rotaries. He is the most capable person I know with a rotary engine. Is that accurate?
That you know, yeah.
That's in a close proximity where I can actually go ask them like to do a video with me. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, yeah.
Probably. So it's the least amount of effort to create the best amount of content for you guys. This is his own personal RX-7. How long have you had it?
Probably 5 years.
How much does it make, horsepower wise?
Now it makes like 300.
Is it good?
Yeah, it's on stock twins now. So
okay.
It used to make 500 on a 67mm.
And it was reliable?
Yeah, it was reliable, but it didn't have AC, so.
Okay, you're gonna do a huge 5-minute burnout for us right now?
No, I don't.
Would it blow up?
Again,
no.
But it wouldn't blow up.
You don't think it'd blow up?
No, it wouldn't.
Show us the car real quick. Why is it so clean?
It's dirty.
Oh, it's really cool. Look, there's dogs. There's dogs everywhere. Attack wiener dog. Oh, wiener dog's taken off. You scared it, Emilio.
That's Leo. He's a resident shop dog.
Yeah.
He's really friendly.
What? Oh, it's a good interior color. It has a tastefully modded steering wheel. This is actually really good condition. I like how we're always amazed when you see like a halfway decent RX-7 because you never see him. Hey puppy.
He's scared.
Aw. It's because you're running a rotary. This looks like almost a Japanese car. You know, like when you're in, when you're in Japan and you see the RX-7s, they're so stock and nice, if you know what I mean?
Lightly modded, yes.
Yeah.
That's what I went for after having a fully crazy car with like 700 horsepower.
Why is that rotary running in the background? It's so loud.
He's fine tuning it.
Okay. Anything cool to say about this thing?
No, nothing cool.
I love how the intercooler is way back here.
Yeah,
very cool. You wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. So it's pretty much all cooling mods, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's on a standalone. It has 4 2200cc injectors. It has flex fuel, so I can run down 85. But other than that, it's pretty stock in terms of format for turbo setup. But it's non-sequential.
Okay, let's film this video. Let's do this. Let's get this out of the way. And then tell me what this is. Is it an RX-3?
No, it's a 1972 Datsun.
Oh, it's a Datsun?
Yeah, Datsun.
With a rotary?
Yeah.
And this is a drag car, obviously. Holy cow!
It has a Garrett turbo.
Look at this turbo. It is way bigger than my hand. Holy cow.
I don't even know the size of it. I'd have to ask.
Is this like a blow-through carb thing? What is this?
So it is. It has no intercooler because it runs on M1 fuel, which is alcohol and ethanol. So we let the fuel do the cooling of it.
How much power does this thing make?
980, I think, on the dyno, spinning the rollers.
Is it a 13B or a 12A?
It's a 13B, 2-rotor, 1.3.
Okay. Why such a unique looking manifold? Just because it's alcohol and it doesn't matter?
Right. So most situations you would have like an intercooler that goes through the intercooler and then so the hot pipe and the cold pipe, but this is just straight into the engine.
Okay. But I mean, like, this is just an alcohol thing, just like trying to get as much fuel through. It just looks really weird to me.
Oh, the fuel rails? Yeah. So I think this setup now has 10 injectors. 20. 10? Yeah, 2300s.
Yeah.
So for the most part, it's shortest route to get the boost in as fast as possible, and at the same time, as open, as least restricted as possible as well.
All right, some quick questions. How much fuel does this thing run in like a quarter-mile pass?
So I think the fuel cell is like 2.5 gallons. It'll probably go through 2 gallons in a pass.
2 gallons to make it a quarter mile.
Yeah.
So that means 1 mile at full throttle would be 8 gallons of fuel in this thing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Holy cow.
But it's full throttle, of course.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, like, when you put it in math like that, it's just hilarious. I'm asking you silly questions.
It's perfectly fine.
And look at this exhaust. This is crazy. This is a 6-inch pipe? What is that?
I think it's...
and then it pops out right there in the fender?
Yeah.
That's way bigger than 4-inch.
Maybe 5-inch.
Yeah?
I didn't build this car.
The car's super cool.
Yeah.
How fast is it?
So now, most recently, it won in Orlando at a race that went 7.2, 7.3.
They have rotaries all over the place. Oh yeah? Once you go to a car guy's place, there's always like one's heading outside too, which is hilarious. Are these more rotaries, Emilio?
More rotaries, yes. But these are drag cars. They don't do a lot of.
Don't tell me, tell the YouTube audience.
We don't do a lot of drift cars here, except for Gary. But
yeah?
I'm trying to get them more drift cars because they always do drag racing.
Yeah.
So for the most part, they're Puerto Rican. We're all Puerto Rican, and that's why.
Why aren't they Corollas then if you're Puerto Rican? Are these a big thing in the Puerto Rican community as well?
They're just as big.
Ah.
This is supposed to be a sleeper kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the same car as the other one. It's a 72 Datsun. It's been sitting, but you could see it's similar setup, but
ginormous turbo. It's still a huge turbo.
Also Garrett turbo.
Yeah. What is the transmission in these things?
So this one has a Turbo 2 5-speed. The other one has a G-Force 2000 clutchless transmission.
Okay.
So this is for a different class. It's like for a street class.
Yeah.
The other one's like an outlaw class.
Whew, I would hate to wreck one of these. This one doesn't. Oh, it does have a cage. Okay, as long as you have a cage, I guess.
Yeah, they all have cages.
They're little tiny cars. They've got to be so fast with huge power.
Yeah.
How much does this one make?
Like 600.
600?
Yeah.
Reliably?
Yeah.
Yeah. Reliably drifting?
I don't know about that. Drifting.
What is this car over here?
This one's a Toyota Starlet.
Oh, okay.
So it's also a full.
I know what Starlets are. I just can't tell when it's like buried like this. They're going to gas it up and start it for us. And probably make the neighbors mad. Because I hear this thing is probably very, very loud. I'm assuming, but Emilio concurs.
It's loud.
It's gonna be really loud.
They're used to it. The neighbors are used to it.
I was making a joke earlier. It looks like he's filling up a lawnmower. But it's not gonna sound like one. It's gonna sound way louder.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a lawnmower.
Because yours kind of sounds like a lawnmower.
Does it?
It's a rotary thing.
Sure. It's an opinion thing.
Opinion? So you said it has 2,000 cc injectors and 10 of them?
Yeah.
Or are they staged in different sizes?
They're it's the same size, but they're staged. So there's primaries and secondaries.
But there's 10 of them.
Yeah. And then there's
Holy cow.
They also have a nitrous jet that feeds fuel straight into the engine on top of those 10 injectors.
And how much more alcohol does it take than gas to run an engine like this? Is it like 40% more than gasoline?
Oh, alcohol?
Or is it like double?
Yeah, alcohol I would say is kind of close to double.
Dang. E85 is 35 or 33% more?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So what I want to do today is I want to talk about rotaries in relation to drifting mostly, but a lot just about the rotary engine in general, where we've got two guys here that are way more informed than myself. I did own a rotary RX-7 in a weird way with LS1s and rotary engines for like 10 years, but these guys know way more about them. Come here, guys.
No luck.
Introduce yourself. Yeah, I have no luck. You guys have lots of luck.
Emilio?
Ryan.
Okay, and real quickly, both of these guys know tons about rotaries. They build them, they tune them, they race them. They have more than a decade of experience, and they're Puerto Rican, which helps.
Correct.
It's like it's instant like
That's
rotary karma.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to the camera. First of all, do you know any history about the motors?
So to summarize it,
Real quick.
Some guy Wankel in Germany created the actual theory, and the Japanese engineer liked it, and they actually took over, and that's why Mazda ran with it. Ford and Chevy and other manufacturers also give it a shot, but obviously they gave up, like many people out there. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it.
If you want more info, Wikipedia.
Oh, that's a cheap shot. They got out of that easily. All right, my first question is, if they're such amazing motors, why aren't all gasoline engines rotary engines?
They're not really.
This isn't just a troll, like it's real
No,
question.
they're not fuel
They're not
efficient.
efficient. Yeah.
In fuel, like fuel consumption wise.
Yeah.
Like they efficiently make power, but they do consume a lot of fuel. Even naturally aspirated ones. Yeah.
So it's mostly a fuel consumption problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Then for racing, why don't all race cars run them? Since fuel consumption is not a problem in most race cars, why don't race cars all run them?
Well, I mean, I guess drag cars do. A lot of drag cars down in Puerto Rico, that's all they use.
The import scene.
That's all they use.
Yeah.
Rotaries. It's actually cheaper than a piston engine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they go that route. But I mean,
And the reason it's cheaper, so like in the rotary scene, the drag scene, the import drag scene, it's like 2Js for rear wheel drive, 2Js and rotaries. So rotary, if you hurt the engine, they came up with unbreakable apex seals, so the engine will lose compression. So, but nothing necessarily structurally would be damaged for the most part. So all they do is open the engine, replace the seals, and then they're up and going. At 2J, like if it throws a rod and melts a piston, then you have to go through all that process. So it's way more expensive to make the same amount of power.
Okay. So you do think that they're very efficient ways to make power in drag racing?
Yeah,
of course.
Okay. Why doesn't everybody use them in drifting?
I think the
Do you
reliability-
suggest them in drifting?
I wouldn't suggest them for somebody else that doesn't know about them. If you don't know about rotaries or you don't have the money, I would not suggest a rotary car.
But you just said they're cheaper. Are you saying they're actually more expensive in drifting to run a rotary?
Well, they're cheaper if you do your own work.
right.
Okay.
But there's very few people out there that work on rotaries. It's a unique skill to have. So the people that do it, they obviously charge because it's not something that everybody's comfortable doing.
Do you drift?
I do drift.
Do you drift a rotary? First of all, do you drift and do you own a rotary?
I drift and I own a rotary.
Do you drift your rotary?
I do not drift my rotary.
Why don't you drift your rotary?
Because there's no need. I have a couple 240s.
No need for that.
I have a couple 240s. I have an FC,
Okay.
but the thing is with rotaries, it's like if you're gonna at our level, like if we're gonna build a rotary, it's gonna make power. And with drifting and cost, we want to try and limit the amount of money you spend. So if I have an FC as well, and if I finish that car, I'm gonna go through a set of tires like if I was an FD driver. Why? Because it's gonna make 500 horsepower, and it's gonna be hard for me to hold it back from making that amount of power.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now we got some of the jokes aside and everything. Let's chat real quickly about the actual rotary engines. So there's the 12A, the 13B,
20B,
20B.
26B.
26
Four-rotor.
speed.
Does the 26B come in something?
No.
Okay,
No.
and then so that's a homemade engine.
Yeah.
And then there is going to be a Renesis motor. What is the plus? Isn't there a Renesis motor?
Right.
There is,
Yeah.
but we don't talk about that.
Yeah, we're not talking about that.
So there's a bunch of flavors of rotaries.
Right.
Very quickly, tell me about the 12A, and then tell me if it's relevant. And if it's not relevant, we'll drop it, and then we'll talk about the 13B naturally aspirated and turbo. Oh, he's grabbing rotary parts.
Yeah.
Okay. They're actually going to show you real parts. This is actually like we're doing something.
All right. So this is a 12A rotor,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a 13B rotor. So as you can see, they're the same size in terms of side by side, but
A little bit wider.
it's just wider.
Okay.
It's just kind of like a stroker of a 12A. But they're engineered differently.
Is there any type of like hidden technology in the 13B that makes it inherently bigger, or is it simply larger and that's the only bigger, like cooler thing about it?
It's just larger. On the turbo ones, it's the same because it's 4 ports. On naturally aspirated ones, those are 6 ports, variations of the 13B, 6 ports or different ports that they did variations. Like the Renesis is also like a weird different port combination as well. But the 12A is 4 ports, and the turbo one and the one that is mostly used for performance is 4 port as well. There's also other ports, like they'll port the actual aluminum housing, and that's semi-peripheral, and then if you just run just the housing as the intake port, then it's peripheral port.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, when you hear the yellow car idle, it does that rap 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 they're so famous for.
That's a semi.
It's because it's semi. The Bridgeport does a similar sound as well, but for the most part, those are just different kinds of ports.
Do you want to talk about the advantages? Let's talk first about the motors and keep going. So is there any reason to do a 12A motor at all? Or is the 12A just forget about it, do a 13B? Or are the 12As good motors and you should do it, it's just a smaller displacement?
If you want more power, I would go with the 13B. That's just my preference. But the 12As make power as well.
Okay. So there's not a huge difference in like there's not a huge difference in head design, like say from the LT1, the old one, up to an LS1 and a small block Chevy. There's not such a huge difference in head design that you're not gonna.
It's the size itself makes a huge difference in terms of volume of air that it's moving, and that's how the rotary makes power. It's just volume.
Volume air. Yeah.
So like a lot of like where in situations like tying it to the ports on a piston engine that you stroke it and then you put a cam on it. On the rotary, it's more in regards to being able to add more fuel, more boost. So as you increase boost, like it's gonna make more power.
You just put in more boost and then more apex seals fly out?
They can.
Well, they can fly out. They can.
Anything's possible, but yeah.
Okay, so the 12A is simply smaller. The 13B is bigger. Probably most of you guys are running the 13Bs.
Right.
Is there a reason to jump up to the 20B other than just more displacement? Could you just not put way more boost into the 13B and be happy? Or is there a huge reason to go to the 20B, such as you can't run an unlimited amount of boost in a 13B because it blows up or something? Like, what's the limiting factor in a 13B why someone would go up to a 20B?
The 20B
is a helicopter.
Yeah. The 20B.
That's okay, keep going.
It's not a rotary plane.
No.
But the 20B in itself, it's not going to be able to handle more boost.
It's going to make more power.
It's going to make more power, right? So it'll make more torque. Right, but 2 things that are limitations with the 20B is, do you have the money, and do you have the space in the engine bay? Because they are bigger.
Okay.
But to your point in regards to making more power on the 13B and justifying a 20B, in reality, if you don't have the money and you don't have the space, it's not worth moving to a 20B. You could just have as much fun with a 13B.
Okay.
Just more boost.
Just more boost.
Yeah. Because like your drag car out there, it makes 900 wheel or something like that, and you guys are doing it simply through more boost. It's still a 1.3 basically.
Right.
You guys didn't go do a 20B, so that's my main question. Like, is there a big purpose to do a 20B most of the time? And it doesn't seem, because I look around your shop, and you guys seem to have unlimited funds for rotaries to a certain degree. You know what I mean? Like, you have very nice, expensive stuff. The yellow car has a ton of time and everything, and it would be a small percentage of extra time and money to go 20B. Right. You know what I mean? But you guys chose to stay 13B.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I think it has to do with the sound too. They sound way different. So I guess people go that route.
People spend the money because they want the sound. They sound really good, but they're very hard to find as well. The parts are very hard to source. Now, like similar to what I was talking about earlier, that yellow car has billet by pack plates. So you could also spend the money with billet by pack and buy those plates, but just the E shaft alone is very difficult to find. You know, a couple $1,00000 just.
Can you just buy an aftermarket one?
No, I mean there's people that are making them.
They make billet E shafts, but they're pricey.
How much?
So we're probably talking about like $3,000.
Okay.
Just the E shaft itself.
Right.
So like the crank.
Yeah. I mean, it's doable if you're doing a big motor.
It's doable.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you have the money.
Okay.
If you have down.
So the 13B seems to be the sweet spot right now.
Right.
20B is rare. 12A is a little bit smaller, like displacement. You might as well have the 13B, especially because it comes in the cars that you would actually want to drive most of the time with the FC and the FD RX-7.
Right.
How about the Renesis motor?
Oh no.
It's much newer. It's very plentiful. It's inexpensive. you're not like, you know, there's a lot more of them around than the
I'm sweating,
FDs
alright.
and FCs. So you guys do not like the Renesis motors?
No.
What's the problem with the Renesis motor?
I think is engineered with a completely different theory. It's still a 13B.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still, the rotors themselves are the same size, the engine itself is the same size, but where on a regular 13B, like a traditional 13B, where the intake ports and the exhaust ports are separate,
mm-hmm.
on a Renesis motor, the intake ports and the exhaust ports are on the same iron plates. Mm-hmm. So that's retaining heat. Mm-hmm. So heat's what kills these engines. Even from when they were stock twin turbos, it's heat. So, but part of the reason that they needed to do that is for fuel emissions and fuel efficiency. So, going back to our point of like, why doesn't everybody drive a Rotary or make a Rotary? Is because they're gas guzzlers, and it's hard for them to meet the California standards for emissions. Right. So that's why they go through that. They lean the engine out, and we can talk about a little more about that later. But those things make it finicky. We've messed with them. And
no luck.
No luck.
There's no point in.
Okay, so you guys just don't mess with them. It's not worth thinking about. If you ever Renesis motor, just like kill it.
You can buy the body.
Yeah. Well, they're really, really cheap.
Yeah, they're really cheap. I mean, if you already have one that's running, one tip is just start pre-mixing it. And the reason for pre-mixing is just try and keep.
But that's just to try and keep the thing reliable. We're not even talking about race car stuff.
Yeah,
that's just to try and keep it not dying.
Yeah, just keep it alive.
All right, so we've learned a little bit about the motors. Let's talk real quickly about like the 26Bs, which are the four-rotors and stuff. Have y'all ever messed with those? Why do you or why don't you?
So that's big money. So the four-rotors themselves, I believe Le Mans had, Mazda made four-rotors for those race cars. But as far as us being exposed to that, I mean, they're very rare, very expensive engines. I mean, people like Mad Mike are lucky enough to be able to run one of those engines, but they're very expensive.
Can you explain very quickly why they're expensive so people can understand and give them a price tag that you think is about correct if you were to buy one from someplace?
26 or 20B?
The 26, because you have to buy.
So it's
all custom. You basically have to buy it.
You'd have to buy the E-shaft.
Could you stand right here for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd have to buy the crank itself. That's a billet crank. That's not cheap.
Like $2,000, $10,000, $15,000.
No, you're probably talking like 4 or 5.
Okay.
4 or 5 grand.
I mean, you could probably get up there 10 grand.
Yeah, it's big money. The housings you can get from a 13B.
Yeah, because it's the same housings and same rotors. Like you could just keep adding rotors. There's a boat out there that has like, was it 12 rotors or something ridiculous?
No, I think it's 6.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you could build one for 10 grand.
It's not that easy. No? It's not as simple as that.
So how much do you think a 26B would cost if you were to go buy one? That was reliable and you could put it in something.
I mean, I'm sure somebody in New Zealand sells them.
Probably something like 15 or something like that.
Probably more.
You think as low as 15?
I don't know.
Because like a Titan TJ is like over 20.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be up to 50 grand. Who knows?
It's going to be cheaper. It's going to be cheaper than a TJ, for sure.
You think so?
Yeah.
For a 26B?
Yes.
Wow.
Because, I mean, you can get the housings.
Yeah.
The plates. The only thing you would need is the E-shaft.
And by cheaper, he's talking about us building it. Like
right, no, how much if a shop built it?
Oh, probably like 50, 60 grand.
Yeah, no,
100
if
grand.
Shop builds it, yeah, no.
Oh, okay. I was like, this sounds like a bargain. Let's all go build $15,000 26Bs.
Yeah, right. Because you not only have to get the E-shaft, you'd have to put it together. Along with that, you have to make a custom oil pan. You have to make custom exhaust manifold, custom intake manifold.
Custom.
Yeah. If you look at like somebody like Mad Mike, that's probably the most famous one. Is the manifolds and everything. That's crazy. Like they made their own manifolds, which we can do. But if you were to do it as a regular person out there that doesn't mess with rotaries and is trying to pursue that dream of having a four-rotor, like you'd go broke quick.
Yeah. Okay, so we're talking like 40 to 56 grand, 40 to 50 grand. What?
I haven't even looked it up because it's so expensive.
Okay, something crazy like that. 40 grand. Okay,
more than what
it's just an approximation, but you start to understand, and that's not the cost of the entire car. You would still have a crazy transmission at the cost of probably 15 grand for like a sequential because you're going to do something cool on that. You're going to have all the other stuff going along with that. You're very quickly at probably a $100,000 car minimum to build something like that. Right. How much do you think Mad Mike's car is, just off the top of your head, knowing that it's a top level build?
It's probably like 150.
150, 200, yeah.
Okay. Think that's a pretty safe bet? Yeah. That's building it once without operating it or doing anything else.
Right. I mean,
or figuring out what's wrong with it and then fixing it.
Right. The operating cost, and this is like, of course, we don't know what the shop charges per hour, but in parts alone, like it's well over 100 grand.
Damn. Okay, so the 26B is super expensive. The 13B is a sweet spot. That's what you guys mess with mostly. Let's talk about what makes them reliable or unreliable, how to make power with them, and what you would do for drifting specifically. So if I were to go out and buy, what is better, the FC RX-7 Turbo 2 or an FD RX-7 for the 13Bs? What's the better platform?
It depends what you want.
Yeah, what are you trying to do? So
I said you're going drifting.
Well, so if you do drifting,
yeah,
I would do this. FC.
An FC?
FC.
And why is that?
I guess you could talk a little bit more about that.
So FC.
And we're talking about the motor platform, not the entire car.
Oh, so just the engine?
Yeah, we're talking about the motor.
So
motor. Okay.
There's an engine that we don't have here, but it's the Cosmo 2-rotor. So these are 13B turbos. Then 13B RE, which is the Cosmo, and 13B REW, which is the FD. But like this car, this is an FD engine.
REW.
REW. So this is an REW.
Okay, no one knows what you're pointing at, but keep going.
So I would say the 13B REW is probably the best bet because it's the most accessible and
it's cheaper.
It's cheaper.
That's the FDRX7.
The FDRX7
okay.
engine, right? Because the Cosmo is harder to find, more expensive. The 13B Turbo 2, the stock engine on a FC, it's good, but at a certain power, you risk cracking plates, and the ports are smaller, so it doesn't make as much power. You could port them, but even then, like you're taking the risk that you'll crack plates over 400 horsepower.
So REW is probably the way to go.
Okay. And would you keep it stock turbos and stock everything, or what would you do specifically to make it work?
So I have my car with stock turbos, but I wouldn't recommend that because again, we talked about heat earlier. So the stock turbos retain heat because they're right up against the engine. So single turbo is the best bet, making sure you have a good...
and that's not just to make more power, that's specifically to like exhaust more heat by having a bigger exhaust system that's freer flowing, so that all that heat doesn't build up on that like turbo side against the motor, right?
Okay. And there's different theories on that, but I would say, from my experience, and Ryan could probably agree, going single turbo, it would eliminate a lot of your headaches.
And a piston motor, normally when we're talking about more cooling, we're talking about putting a bigger radiator on there, different fans possibly, although that's not always a good idea, or also doing an oil cooler. But here you're saying you're actually cooling the motor by doing a different exhaust. So you're doing a bigger turbo, which is freer flowing. I just want to be clear because I don't think a lot of people get this.
You still want to make sure you have a big radiator. Like for example, even factory Turbo 2s or FCs, like we don't have one right now in this car, but they have a big oil cooler. And even like if you go buy an FD, they have the Touring model, only has one oil cooler, but the Touring model is the one that has sunroof and comfort. The R1, which is the racier model, has two oil coolers. This is just from factory. So Mazda recognized that they needed to keep it cool. But I would say you still have to do the supporting models of running a coil radiator with big oil coolers. We do run a coil radiator in this thing. So yeah, I mean, but yes, like
so a bigger Garrett turbo would really cool that motor.
Yeah, I mean, it's less back. There's two things. So the back pressure is one source of heat, and the other aspect is cast iron just sitting right up against it because the stock turbos are cast iron, basically baking right up against it.
Okay, so cooling is probably the biggest thing. What comes after cooling? Do you actually have to go in and upgrade anything inside the motor? Do you just run really low boost? Like, do you get a better ECU so you can tune the thing? Like, what specifically?
Your first purchase should be an ECU, I would say, before anything.
Because the stock one is that bad?
Well, I'm sure that Mazda tuned it to meet emission standards and stuff. But just making sure that you can monitor your water temps, oil temps, and everything else. And along with that, making sure that you tune it in a rich, like extra fuel. We're just not fuel efficient, but it keeps the engine cool inside.
Okay.
So I would do that before you...
Is this stuff you really need to do? Because like as someone that drives drift cars, I never look at the gauges. If I have a JZ car in my Japan JZ car, it has a stock radiator. I beat the bejesus out of it. You've seen me drive that thing. I do not pay attention to the cooling. We drive it for weeks at a time. It doesn't have any problems. My car is here. I do the same type of thing. My LS car just has a bigger radiator, and like that's about the only cooling mod. And we beat the bejesus out of it. I don't look at the cooling stuff. So are you saying if I have a rotary car, I'm going to have to be checking logs of cooling, and I'm going to have to pay attention to it?
You have to pay attention to it. I mean, you don't necessarily look at logs all the time, but you got to get an ECU. Like we run Hall Techs or Field Techs where they have safety features where if the car, you know, starts running a little hotter, it'll start taking a little, pulling power back, whether it be lowering in the boost, lowering your RPM, limiting you from being able to beat on the car the same to try and keep that engine cool.
It'll stop you basically.
Yeah.
It'll stop you from
Okay.
It's like engine protection. That's
So you cannot just go beat on these things and not pay attention to them like you can a JC or an LS.
you can, but we wouldn't recommend it.
But would it last is my point.
It's a luck of the draw. You
Yeah,
can, because
really?
I mean, yeah,
Okay.
it's a luck of the draw.
Because you have to remember, a lot of people like myself or like the normal 350Z owner, they don't even know they have gauges in the car.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Right,
not a
right,
joke.
right.
Like, a lot of the drivers are not going to pay attention to it. So if you gave me a rotary engine and I was not paying attention to gauges, would it survive?
It'll survive.
Yeah.
It'll survive.
If it's all about
If you got a good ECU.
Okay,
Good ECU
because the
does all
ECU
that.
is going to do all of it
Right.
for me.
right,
Right,
good
okay.
ECU and good tuner.
It'll do all
So,
of it.
like
It'll
for
survive.
example, this car is tuned by Nelson, which is the same tuner that tunes Kyle Mulhan's car.
Right.
Okay.
So he has experience tuning drift cars. So we prefer to steer him in that direction, just to ensure that things that were being set up were specifically around drifting, because drifting and drag racing are completely
Way
different.
Yeah.
The
I
tunes,
understand, but you guys know a lot about rotaries, so I'm here.
right?
Okay, so we've talked about cooling and all that stuff. What's the next step after cooling? You said ECU, now what's after ECU?
Fuel system.
What do you do with the
Fuel.
fuel system? Just a
Upgrade.
crap ton more fuel,
Upgrade.
E85?
More fuel
Tons
than
of
you need.
injectors. I mean, it depends on power, obviously.
Yeah.
But bigger injectors, pump.
Is it
fuel
because
pump.
the factory stuff fails? Is it because the factory stuff is
It's not
inadequate?
enough.
Is the factory pump overheat the fuel? Like, what's the specific?
No, it's just not enough.
Okay.
It's just not enough.
So you just need more
So
fuel.
you need more fuel.
Okay. Even at stock boost, you need more fuel?
We usually try and
We
put
usually-
more.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you need a
It's
lot more
needed.
fuel.
It's needed.
Okay. So you cannot run one on stock pump and stock injectors,
I mean, you
basically.
can.
You can, but it's got to run on the either the twins
Yeah.
or a small single turbo. I mean, it can't be something
Yeah.
bigger, you know.
No, that makes sense.
So
But yeah,
I
like
forgot
even-
we immediately, our first mod was a big turbo to cool it.
That was
These
you.
cars are ridiculous.
We didn't say all that. That was you. But like even my car, I run stock twins that are non-sequential, and I run 4 2200cc injectors. So
What? For 2200?
Yeah.
Is that necessary?
not necessary, but it's a safety that I have there if I want to make sure and have plenty of fuel.
yep.
Okay. Okay, after fuel, what's next?
Well, I mean,
Fuel.
I would say if you have the ability to rebuild the engine before actually modding it, I would do that to replace the apex seals. Because, so you were joking around earlier about like the apex seals shoot out and then ruin the turbo and everything else. If it's a stock apex seal, yes, they're breakable, like they're brittle.
Yeah.
They're very good in terms of sealing against factory housing, but yeah. So changing the apex seals, making sure you start fresh. Because let's say you go through a stock engine and you put that big turbo and you put those cooling mods and then you put that thing that. So when we're talking about a standalone ECU, that includes a new harness.
No,
Because-
is this a troll? I can't
No,
keep the
I'm dead serious.
Why can't I keep the factory engine harness?
Because they run so hot that that harness gets brittle. So like, let's say.
And okay, all the connectors are dead, the wiring's
Right,
dead.
right.
Okay.
So if like one connector disconnects and that injector stops firing, let's say
it takes the motor out.
it takes the motor out. Yeah. So you want to make sure you eliminate that risk.
Okay, so what do we get to keep?
Just the little small block.
Oh man.
Or long
Okay,
block.
we should probably reseal the thing while we're in there, do a new oil pump.
Well, yeah, you would
You
do
can
that.
keep the
That's
wiper.
New water pump.
Keep the wipers. You can keep the massive
Oh,
cylinder.
the steering rack. You know, you can keep that the same.
Are these parts super cheap if you do it yourself, like the apex seals and all these things? Can you do cheap
Compared-
injectors, or do you need to do like really nice ID 1000s? Probably really nice injectors.
I would do good injectors, especially if you're gonna go with
Yeah,
E85 or drifting.
Okay.
Yeah, I would.
Can we just cool the engine with E85? Does that work?
Yeah.
Can you use that as a cooling mod?
That helps.
Yeah, it does
Okay.
help. You make a lot more power, like a lot more power
A lot more
with
power.
E85 on a rotary. It makes a huge difference.
Straight E85.
Not like
Pure
E50,
E85, not
E60.
E60, not.
Yeah. Okay. So after that stuff, is the car reliable yet, or do we have to upgrade the ignition? Does the ignition have to be upgraded?
You can.
You
It's
can.
not- I mean, you don't
well, the
have
thing
to.
is, it depends how much power you're trying to make. Because the stock ignition.
350 wheel. Just
Oh
like,
yeah, the stock
yeah,
ignition
yeah,
system
stock.
is good. Yeah.
Okay.
Stock will work.
What else do we have to change? Anything else? Is there anything else left to change?
No, I think
No,
you
that's
changed.
Spark
it.
plugs.
Well, we just run. So one of the
So,
well, stock rotary. So there's the trailing and the leading. So the easy way to remember the top plugs and the lower plugs. That's the same way. They run 9s, and then for those that know about spark plugs, so
the heat range.
The heat range, right? So they run 9s
And 7s.
and 7s. So you just change them to be all 9s.
Okay.
I'll trade in plugs.
Okay, now if you were to build your own drift car, what would we add on top of that to make a bit more power? It's like, that's everything we need for the 350 wheel range?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much
Yeah.
it.
Okay, so what if we want to do like 450 wheel? Because like if we're going to a Rotary, we want to make some power, we want to have some fun. Is it just like just turn up the boost now?
From that initial setup, so it's basically this car.
Yeah.
Because this car makes like 450,
Yeah,
460.
this car made 460
Mm-hmm.
with the 85 at like 14,000.
Cool. Does the transmission handle that?
Yes.
Yes.
Drifting?
I mean, he's gone through a transmission.
Like 2 or 1?
They're turbo 2 transmissions, right?
Yeah, yeah, but you
They'll
know,
hold up.
they'll hold up in terms of power, but you gotta understand, these are 20, 30-year-old transmissions.
Right, they're all old.
So, you know, it's not about the transmission failing per se, it's just, it's old.
So you're gonna have to budget for a transmission.
Right.
Right.
Can you buy them brand new from Volkswagen?
Volkswagen.
Volkswagen.
No.
Like Toyota still sells brand new R154s. I just bought one.
No,
No, it's...
we even
They're
tried
hard
to
to find
even
gears.
when his transmission
Even gears,
broke, we
yeah.
couldn't buy gears for it.
Yeah, gears
You have to source it.
hard to find.
Yeah.
But there's some people out there making kits for CD009.
Okay. All right. So you want to make 450 wheel. What do we do next?
I would say run a bigger fuel line. So from the pump up.
Okay.
And the reason for that is volume. So there's, you know, volume and there's, you know, the consumption, right? So the source itself. So
Volume and pressure.
the pump is one thing, but you also want to make sure you have that volume. If you're doing drifting, you want to make sure you have a surge tank as well.
Right.
Just to make sure, because the thing is, if on a rotary, if the car ever goes lean, that's when it's risking it being hurt. On a piston car, like it'll potentially knock for those that know how to tune or know about that. So creates knock at a lower timing or something. But the minute that the rotary goes lean, it does risk, you know, hurting an apex seal and losing compression. So you want to make sure that it has that fuel at all times, regardless of what's going on. If it's switching back and forth. So this car has a, what company is that? Radium.
Yeah.
Radium and
Surge tank.
yeah.
We also forgot to mention you should obviously do a bigger exhaust all the way back
Right.
immediately because that's part of the overheating. You'd also need an intercooler and you'd also need a radiator.
Right.
Okay.
So regular stuff that you would do.
Regular stuff, yeah, just every day. Got to do that on every car.
Yeah.
Every 350Z has to have that to go do one lap.
No.
Okay, so
He's trolling me.
what's next? Where does the engine start failing at that point then? Because so far we have the stock, everything inside the long block except for the seals. Do we need to do anything else besides the seals as we raise power?
The tune, it's just the tune.
Really, that's it?
I would say 80% of the time that a rotary is hurt is by the tune. So you have to get a good tuner.
Okay. How many good tuners for drift cars with rotaries are there in Texas?
In Texas?
Yes, in
Just-
Texas.
I know of one.
Just Nelson.
And that's just Nelson.
Okay, so there's no one else you could take a rotary drift car to and get tuned, and you guys would be happy in Texas.
Be confident.
besides this one
I
guy.
mean, ourselves, like I would tune my own car.
I would tune my own car, but if I was gonna take it to somebody, I would take it to Nelson.
Okay, but you guys are both competent at it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 3.
Well, there's.
No.
I mean,
There's other. There's.
But you guys aren't doing it for money.
Well, yeah.
Well,
You're like, well, here's my
ourselves,
phone number.
well,
for ourselves. No, the thing is, well, we laugh, but if it's our own car, we can try different things out. So the fact that Nelson has a lot of experience tuning a rotary drift car, there's aspects that he maybe knows more than us because he's had that exposure.
Yeah.
So it would take a lot of time, a lot more time for us to kind of make
Figure
sure
it out.
we tune it regular tune, and then just look at what areas of the map maybe are touched by drifting compared to a regular drag car or just a street car. It's not exactly the same. You want to make sure you take some other precautions.
Okay. All right, knowing this stuff, would you choose this as a platform to go drifting?
if it was for me,
Yeah.
I would.
You would?
Yeah.
How about you?
No.
No?
It depends what I'm trying to do. If I'm just trying to have fun, no. If I'm trying to be competitive, yes.
Okay, you think it would be a very competitive platform?
Yes.
Okay.
Power, the amount of power I can make for me with a rotary, and the fact that there's so many aftermarket parts for an FC or even FD for suspension, you know, BC coilovers, other knuckles and stuff, you could definitely build a solid competitive drift car. I mean, Harrison in your series runs an FC, but it has an LS1 in it.
Right, and he does really well.
Right, but just imagine, right, so it's not the chassis. So imagine if he had a 500 or 600 horsepower 13B.
He also won in a Volvo.
He's a skilled driver, yes.
Yes. Okay. Knowing that I have been drifting for a very long time, I'm experienced. I somehow maintain V8 cars and SR cars at fairly high power levels, and 350Zs with turbo kits and all of these different things. I've had them, various levels of maintenance. Would you recommend I have a rotary car as a drift car?
No, because I've known you for 14, 15 years.
Would you suggest that anyone within my series that you know of has a rotary drift car?
If they have the money.
No. Anyone that you can think of, is there one person in the series you're like, that guy should have a rotary?
I think Harrison should have a rotary.
You think Harrison could keep one running?
No, that's not. So
no, that's the question.
Those separate questions.
No, do you think, as they are, as the human they are, that anybody in my series could reliably maintain one, run one, and have fun with it and not ruin their life?
Well, take out the last part. But the only person that I've seen that's very
methodical.
Yeah. It's fielding. So he checks his car, goes through his car all the time.
He blew 5 2Js in 1 week.
Right. So, but I'm not saying that he should do it. But if we talk about a person that goes through their car and checks their car and goes through it,
he often clogs the fuel system so badly with dirt out of the tank that the car won't start or run for entire events. Would that kill a rotary?
Yes, that would definitely kill a rotary.
Okay.
Shit, it wouldn't even make it.
It would do it on the pull. Like that first pull to the sweeper.
So maybe Fielder's not the best person for that?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think.
This isn't just a troll, guys. This is basically me talking about, like, he is a very experienced rotary person that's been doing this a long time, and he wouldn't do it, and most people wouldn't. So the people that do want to do rotaries have to be really, really into it, really involved. They're going to have to do all of their own work. As a rotary race car person, I don't think you could give the work over to a shop. Do you agree?
Yeah, you can.
No, I'm saying as a drifter.
As a drifter, if you have the funds, yeah, you definitely could.
Yeah, I mean, if you have sponsors.
Like, how expensive?
I mean, Gary does it.
Real expensive. But the car doesn't run.
What? It runs?
No, I mean, like, how often does this car get used?
He actually daily drives it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He has other cars, but he daily drives it. If you have him on Instagram, you'll see that he drives it to his shop all the time.
Okay. Fair enough. I like to troll rotary guys. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
That's what I do.
But obviously,
they troll themselves too.
Because I mean, we know. So
yeah, no, this car.
The rotary memes are good.
This car, yeah, this is daily. Cool.
What else can we learn? We're here. What other frequently asked questions can we talk about rotaries? So when Emil, one of the first things I learned really about rotaries that was useful, I would say. I don't know how to pose this. Anyways, I owned a rotary and I've driven dozens of turbo and non-turbo RX-7s. The first thing I have to say about most of the RX-7s I've driven are, if they're naturally aspirated, they're so gutless that they're almost useless to drive.
Yeah, they have no torque.
Yeah. They have zero torque. It is so hard to drive those things and drift, it's ridiculous. The second thing is they can be very powerful. I've driven some powerful ones. They're very cool. I do like them and everything, but Americans such as myself tend to have over-modified them. And like we just talked about all the things that it would take for you to happily drive one and drift it. But when we're in Japan, literally every single FDRX7, and they're so numerous in some places it's like Camaros, all they have done to them is cooling modifications. They have a radiator and
they all have a Power FC if you notice.
Yeah, a Power FC maybe, but like the engine bay literally looks stock on most of them. They're very, very simple, very few bigger turbo upgrades or anything. I found it interesting that our RX-7s over here in America are completely butchered most of the time, but over there in Japan, they were daily driving them like normal cars. Right. They were taking them into the tracks and driving them constantly. It's something that I don't see here.
No, when we went to Japan together.
Yeah, Emilio went with me.
With the FD. Yeah, so I mean, yes, I think it's the same principle in Japan that they don't overcomplicate things. They do light mods for reliability. So you'll notice all the majority of rotary cars in Japan have a Power FC because that's a plug and play. And they can tune it. And again, going back to what we kind of mentioned earlier, it's all in the tune.
Yeah. So could I just take an RX-7 FD like that that's super stock with just a few cooling mods, still the stock turbos with the Power FC and go drift and be happy?
You can do that.
Or do you think it would blow up and still overheat really bad?
Well, I mean, as long as everything else is working like it's supposed to, yeah.
So I don't have to go do all of these mods that you said initially to make the thing run.
You wouldn't, but the reason we say all that is to make sure you are proactive versus taking the risk of not checking all those things and then end up spending more money because you'd have to source a long block for parts.
Knowing me, would I have better luck running the stalker vehicle like that? Like the RX-7 FD that has all the stock parts, or doing everything at once? Upgrading the fuel lines, the wiring, the turbo, the exhaust manifold, the injectors, the entire fuel system, the fuel pump, the ECU.
For as frequent as you like to drive your cars and beat on your cars, I would say it's better to build the car.
Okay. So,
but if you, let's say like you have an FD or an RX-7 and you want to try it out, try drifting out, and like you don't have to necessarily go and buy another car. You could definitely go out there and give it a try.
Would you think I would be able to take an FD RX-7 that's really simple like that and drive it as much as like a 350Z, just like weekend after weekend, or would the thing not work?
I wouldn't do that. No.
Okay.
You can't compare that. They're just different.
Obviously.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is heat, I would say. So like a Z, you could technically hot lap it. FD, you can. A rotary, even a modded rotary, it's very hard on them. Any engine is hard.
Wait,
but
so normally you've seen how I drive. I take 25 laps in a row. Would I not be able to do that even with a modified rotary?
Not necessarily.
Yeah,
you'd have to monitor. Well, you have to monitor the temps. It has to be the temp outside. How hard you're beating on it, how often you're bouncing the rev limiter, which we wouldn't recommend.
I can't hit the rev limiter?
It's not necessarily the best thing, but yeah, it's not the best thing to do.
Can you not just turn the rev limiter up so high on these that you can't hit it?
I mean, you can, but the thing is with rotaries, it'll keep revving.
Yeah,
it'll keep going.
The turbo won't just max out and it won't just die on torque so bad it can't make more.
It'll keep revving.
It'll keep revving.
Really?
So one of the problems is like with some rotaries that are quick revving, like it's hard to keep them under the rev limiter.
Yeah.
So it's easy to over rev them because they spin so freely. So
do they get damaged by over revving them?
They can,
Yeah.
They can. So if you want to get to that level, like the rotors could be modified. We don't have cut rotors here, right? So they cut the rotors, the side of the rotors. They'll modify the rotors themselves to be able to rev higher.
Yeah.
And then obviously you got to balance.
Yeah, balance it.
Assembly.
Yeah.
But that's even more money. You're trying to move to a different level at that point.
We're gonna see some fancy rotary parts.
All right, so this is a billet by pack.
Yeah.
Based out of Australia.
So it's fully billet, aluminum. And so you can see
Is this a steel plate?
This is a treatment they do.
Okay.
No, it's not a steel plate. So this is the port. Basically the port.
You want to show it up here for the camera?
Like a cam.
There we go.
Right. So obviously the bigger the port, more power you're gonna have.
Do people normally just Dremel those out on their normal housings at home?
Yeah, they try to.
They try to?
They try to.
Can I feel how heavy it is? Holy cow, that's light.
Yep.
Are you sure there's not a steel? What is this?
It's not a
steel plate? It's just a treatment?
It's a treatment.
Let's hold it up for the camera.
So there are some billet ones that do have a glued plate or machine plate in there that's steel.
Yeah. And how much is this plate? Is this what you call an iron?
Yes.
In the biz of rotary biz?
Yes.
This is an iron.
Or side plates. They call
side
irons
plate.
or side
And
plates.
these are what are getting rare, right? They're getting hard to find because
the
everybody blew them up?
The stock ones, yes.
Okay.
So everybody's going billet now.
Okay, and how much was that you said?
So this will probably cost you about 23
$2,300
each.
for one? You said these things were cheap. So how many of them?
Once you buy them,
billet. This is billet stuff. The stock ones, no. Stock ones probably $400.
But they're rare now, aren't they?
But they're rare.
So how many of these do you need in a motor?
3.
You need
On a 13
3. 3. That's like $8,000 of these things.
Right.
What if you have a nice shaft?
What do you mean?
You said shaft.
Wait, what are we talking about?
E-shaft?
You would, for the most part, you could use a stock E-shaft.
So that's good enough. You don't need a billet one. So if you built a motor with these, how much is the motor going to cost?
A full motor?
Yeah, a full motor.
Probably like $9 grand.
That's like expensive territory. That's built 2J territory.
More than that.
Well, I mean,
if you're for a customer, No labor, just parts.
Yeah.
Just parts.
It's gonna be up there, like 10.
It depends what you use. Like
How about for a customer? Like if you bought this from a shop.
Like if let's say we bought
whole thing.
the plates.
No, the whole motor.
No,
you
like
just
if
bought
they
a
come
built
and pick
motor.
up a motor from me, that's billet.
For me, billet.
Yeah.
I'll billet. Oh yeah, it's gonna cost you more than $9,000 for sure.
How much?
It's like
He says $9,000 and immediately like, oh wait,
we've never
For you.
calculated that.
Well,
15?
nah.
12?
If not,
We spent-
okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm learning. Okay, so $14,000 for a 13B. So how much would a freaking 26B? How many irons does that have? 6? 5?
No.
It's got
4 side
4
plates.
side plates.
And then
Four.
So it's gonna have this one. It's gonna have a middle plate, a thicker plate.
actually that plate's like $3,600 bucks.
Yeah,
It's thicker.
It's way more money.
So that's what we meant. Like the 20B is not a cheap engine.
Okay. And do these get damaged when your motor blows up? Or is it like a crapshoot? They might not.
Well, it depends what, like if an apex breaks,
Yeah.
then yes, they can obviously hurt. But if you just lose compression, no. I mean,
Okay.
if you break a side seal, yes, you can damage.
If you over rev it and it smacks.
Over rev it, no
Yeah.
oil, lose
Yeah.
pressure, then yes.
These things sound so expensive.
I mean, it's just like a piston
Can
engine.
you buy motors still just like off eBay that are good?
You could buy a Japanese
You can.
import, but you never
GDMs,
know.
the GDM motors.
JDM importer, but the thing is, you never know what the
On
conditions-
SRs, everyone is bad now. You know that story.
I've heard.
They could tell you it's got 50,000 miles,
They lie.
and when you open it up, yeah, that.
In my experience, all those importers lie for engines.
Yeah, I wouldn't open a closed engine unless it's like super cheap. But I would buy, if you're gonna buy an engine, you buy it open
Yeah.
Yeah,
and have somebody that knows what they're doing inspect it.
Probably best bet.
And how much is a used engine? Are they cheap?
Oh, it varies.
Depends.
One that's usable for someone
Well,
that
no, it
just wants
varies.
to buy one and put one
It
in.
varies because you could get one for $1,000 or you could get one for $3,000.
Yeah.
It
So they're
varies.
getting like SRs where they're expensive.
Yeah, it's depending on the
And
market.
you can buy one for, I don't know, $5,000
Yeah.
and be bad, and then buy one for like $500 and be brand new. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like a hit and
It's
miss.
hit or miss.
Hit and miss, pretty much.
Hmm.
So
Do you think the time of RX-7s as drift cars that are easily obtainable and cheap is kind of over then? They're kind of more antique collector things?
Right. It's gonna be tough.
And the
It's gonna be tough.
RX-8s aren't going to cut it?
dang, we're talking bad about Rotaries.
The
This
truth
is
hurts.
not good. Not good for business.
But no, RX-7s are getting hard to find, and rotary parts are getting hard to find.
Yeah.
But luckily, we have companies like Billet by Pack that are going out of their way to create things like side plates, e-shafts, and
Housings. Now they're
and
coming
stuff.
up with housings that are billet.
So, I forgot. So, I owned an FD-RX-7 for a long time. Terrible story. Recently, like 2 years ago or something, I bought an FC Turbo 2, a turbo rotary. This is a true story. I bought it for, I don't know, cheap, like $1,500 or $2,000, I forget.
I think you called me.
Yeah, I drove it, and I was like, Emilio, there's something wrong with this car. It runs flawlessly, but it is slow. It is so slow. And he's like, no, that's how slow they are, Aaron.
Yeah.
He's like, they're just slow. They're super slow. And so I go look up on Wikipedia the stats, and they make like, what, 140 foot-pounds of torque or something? Was that right?
Yeah, it's low. It's not.
Yeah. So I'm just like, oh my God. And I'm like, Emilio, what do I do? Do I up the boost? Do I do this?
I
do
gave
I
you
do
the
that?
laundry list
No,
that
and he
we talked
goes,
about.
no, you sell it, Aaron. You get rid of it. You get rid of it immediately. And then I got rid of it.
Yeah.
Is
good
that
job.
accurate?
That is accurate. That story, I do remember.
Yeah.
I told you to sell it because I didn't want you to go down that route.
Yeah. And because I did that, a Rotary still exists and I didn't kill it.
Do you know if the car is still on?
I assume it's sitting in a parking lot exactly where I dropped it off for the new owner. We gotta have one last gem of information.
What do you want to know?
I don't know. So many good questions. Well, when we were talking about JZs, we covered all the things like, is a 1J stronger, a 2JZ stronger, the different years. We've covered that through all these. The REW is the best one in your example or whatever, in your
Right.
experience. 20B is super rare, so you guys don't really come across them often. 26Bs and all that stuff are not a thing. No one ever deals with the motorsport racing ones, probably like Le Mans and all that stuff.
Right.
That's all whatever,
Correct.
off the table. The naturally aspirated ones. Why do people do like the 26B naturally aspirated ones? Is it purely for noise? Do they make amazing power and you would love to do that? Is it a really odd thing? Like, would you guys, what's your opinion on those?
I would say an NA rotary.
It's obviously unique.
An NA rotary that's like a modded NA rotary that's not a Renesis, they're extremely reliable.
Yeah.
Extremely reliable. And you can rev them pretty high. So I could see that's why they would do it.
But then again, it comes back to the tune.
Right, it comes out of the tune.
Because if the tune's bad, I mean, it's not going to last you.
Yeah, so you're asking specifically why people do that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those people are rotary purists, but I would say an NA with a right tune, an NA rotary is super reliable. So, and they sound cool. Like, there's no sound like it. I can't even think of something that sounds like
No, just like a fully on, total full throttle weed whacker.
I mean, you could insert weed whacker sound here, I guess. I don't know. But no, they don't sound like weed whacker.
Sounds like it's shredding money.
Well, if you are going to a drift event, or if you have an NA 2-rotor, do not put a straight pipe on it.
Yeah.
It will sound like a weed whacker and you will lose your hearing. And do not come to our events, whether it be a Lone Star event, a Club Loose event, I will kick you out. We need hearing.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for bestowing us with your rotary knowledge. One final word about doing a rotary thing.
Don't do it.
What about you?
I say do it.
Do it? We have both opinions. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye, everybody.